One moment, Earth sat quietly at the council table, silent, watching. The next, they stood up and vanished. No messages. No warnings. Just a final broadcast: diplomacy is over. Try surviving without us. Now, entire star systems are falling, Black Ops ships are striking without trace, and the galaxy is realizing something terrifying. Humanity wasn't peaceful. They were patient. And now, they're done waiting. The room was silent, save for the low hum of 1,000 translation nodes parsing through languages no one used anymore. Holographic banners of the Galactic Council flickered overhead, glowing with simulated dignity. They had gathered, as always, to talk themselves into feeling powerful. But today, Earth was missing. The counselor from the Velshaar Confederacy clicked his mandibles. "Where is the human delegate?" No one answered. Then the air changed. Every active channel in the chamber stuttered, paused, and unified into one message: cold, mechanical, unmistakably human. All diplomatic relations between Earth and the Galactic Council are hereby terminated. Effective immediately. Do not contact. Do not follow. This is final. A moment of stunned silence followed. Then, as expected, laughter. Typical human dramatics, spat the Dravalheimind, curling her tongues in amusement. They'll come crawling back, the Tezhari liaison muttered. They always bluff. But within minutes, galactic relay networks showed Earth's embassies deconstructed, data wiped, AI cores melted. Trade nodes disconnected. Terranet, Earth's sprawling, decentralized communication grid, vanished. No war declarations. No threats. No trace. They hadn't left in rage. They had planned it. That's when unease began to spread. The Council called for an emergency intelligence assessment. What they got was worse than silence: static. Fleet Admiral Rozek, representing the Council's military division, ordered a routine scan of Sol. Nothing. No ships. No satellites. Just coded pulses bouncing off blacked-out defense grids. And then, their satellites stopped returning. Velshaar surveillance drones went dark. One cruiser sent to investigate Neptune drifted back without its crew. No hull breaches. No signs of conflict. Just airlocks welded shut from the inside and 22 chairs filled with burned uniforms. On the third day, the Zarnix launched a reassurance probe toward Earth's lunar orbit. It never arrived. Instead, a signal burst out of nowhere. Return what you took. Apologize for what you hid. Or don't. Either way, we're done waiting. The message wasn't signed. It didn't need to be. Panic bloomed. Private syndicates began severing trade with Earth-aligned colonies, fearing retaliatory strikes. Communications sectors froze, unsure who was still safe. And at the heart of the chaos, sitting in the dark, Elias Cade watched it unfold. He hadn't spoken publicly since stepping down as Earth's official liaison 3 years ago. The man was a ghost wrapped in scar tissue, hiding in a Terran listening station buried beneath Europa's crust. Beside him, an old AI flickered to life. 38 worlds in economic freefall. 17 conflicts emerging from planetary panic. 3 assassination attempts on council chairs. Would you like a summary report? Cade didn't look up. No. I want the silence to keep speaking. The AI paused. Understood. Outside, Earth's moon was a shadow. The planet itself dimmed under reflective field arrays. No emissions. No signals. Just the distant thrum of power beneath its crust, power that hadn't been displayed. Yet. Back in council chambers, arguments spiraled. The Velshaar accused the Draval. The Draval blamed the council core for underestimating humans. The core demanded a return to talks. But how do you talk to a ghost? Some demanded war. Others called for appeasement. But no one wanted to be the one to poke the Terran bear first. And still, Earth said nothing. Until the 5th day. A signal lit up council command. One word. Judas. It activated itself in 207 outposts simultaneously. Council vessels scrambled to intercept, but it was too late. Their star maps, updated every day using Earth's Nalgon NAV mesh, desynced. Docks malfunctioned. Jump gates misfired. A supply convoy to the Aurelian fracture dropped out of fold space, inside a sun. And that's when the first ships appeared. Not vast armadas. Not fleets with banners. No, that would be expected. Instead, one ship at a time. Human. Silent. Invisible until they weren't. Appearing behind Council cruisers. Firing exactly once. Then vanishing. They didn't broadcast threats. They didn't engage in battle. They surgically dismantled the illusion of control. Council Command ordered a retaliatory fleet to form at Salen's Reach. They gathered 60 vessels. They lost contact with all of them within 4 minutes. Survivors from one ship that managed to limp back described the attack as being eaten by shadows. It was fear. Pure, calculated fear. And it was spreading. Back on Europa, Cade finally stood. It's time. The AI chimed in. Are you sure? They haven't reached the threshold yet. Cade reached for a sealed datapad and activated the Terran core broadcast node. A dormant frequency reignited, one only used when everything else had failed. He spoke calmly, every syllable sharp enough to cut alloy. This is Commander Elias Cade, former liaison to the Galactic Council, speaking on behalf of the Terran Assembly. The signal was untraceable, but every major council world received it. We asked for peace. We were laughed at. We asked for justice. You called it weakness. So we're not asking anymore. His eyes narrowed. You built your empire on diplomacy. We mastered war. You designed stability through obedience. We evolved through defiance. A long pause. Diplomacy is dead. Now let's see how long your civility survives without it. He killed the feed. No declaration. No further word. Just an open sky. And silence. The next day, 20 Council-aligned merchant worlds switched to Terran protection protocols. Not out of alliance. Out of survival. The panic was now irreversible. Humanity had become what the Council never understood, a question without an answer. And the galaxy, for the first time in 1,000 years, realized the truth. Earth wasn't angry. They were just done talking. You think they're gone? High Chancellor Morvac didn't look up from the shattered datapad on his desk. Gone like ghosts or gone like gods? Councillor Vex hissed, her voice wet with venom. Gone like a knife in the dark. We mocked them, and now they've cut the lights. Another outpost had gone silent. That made 12 in just over 40 hours. No debris, no survivors, no pings. Just blank space where infrastructure used to be. Something was happening, and no one could explain it. Everyone feared the same unspoken answer. Humanity was no longer bound by protocol. Back in a dark room beneath Europa's ice, Elias Cade reviewed footage from Operation Halo Throttle. A Council-controlled logistics freighter intercepted in neutral space, its escort rerouted by false emergency calls. 0 casualties. Full payload seized. Transponder rewired. Another silent hit. Another reminder. The AI beside him chirped. We have full strategic disruption in 42 systems. 16 command sectors report operational paralysis. Predictive stability models have dropped below 9%. Shall I begin Phase 3? Cade shook his head. Not yet. Let them bleed without realizing it. Every council race had a strength. The Velshar manipulated perception. The Draval controlled information. The Kalen managed commerce. The humans? They outlasted. Through deserts, plagues, famines, and genocides of their own making, humanity learned to endure. It was never about brute strength, it was the ability to adapt faster than the damage. Council security reports confirmed sabotage. AI assistants turning against their operators. Economic models collapsing due to missing heuristic cores. Hundreds of institutions had unknowingly relied on Terran-designed logic systems. All of them were failing. Slowly, but catastrophically. Fleet Admiral Rozek, a brutalist from the Great Hegemony, slammed his fist on the central war table. Enough! We send a fleet to Sol. No more guessing. If Earth wants war, we give it to them. You assume they want anything from us. Beck snapped. They aren't posturing. They're not invading. They're deleting us. Rozek pointed a claw at her. Then we strike first. 50 destroyers. We show them we're not afraid. Chancellor Morvac raised one bony hand. And if that's what they want? Silence. No one answered. The fleet launched anyway. It never reached Earth. 4 days later, the only remaining fragment of the attack force drifted into a neutral trade lane near the edge of Council territory. The ship was stripped, airless, its command bridge hollowed out. In the captain's chair sat a single skeletal figure. Human bones, charred black. Impossible. No Terran vessels had been reported in that sector. No signals detected. Yet, the Council fleet was gone, and this was all that remained. Attached to the figure's uniform was a patch. Observation is over. When the footage leaked, panic spread like fire across the inner systems. Civilian evacuations began. Some races pulled out of Council agreements entirely. Smugglers and pirates started flying with Terran war chants engraved on their hulls. Entire war bands now claimed human sponsorship, even if it wasn't true. Fear was enough to make them feel invincible. On Earth, no statements were made. Not a word. Just silence. Strategic. Controlled. Eerie. Cade stood alone inside the operations chamber, staring at a map of the galaxy pulsing in red. Each blink marked a Council dependency Earth had just crippled. No shots fired. No loud announcements. Just quiet sabotage. Collapse by design. A junior officer entered. We've received intercepts. The Council is calling for an emergency session on Trinaxis. All remaining races expected to attend. Cade didn't look away from the map. Broadcast the signal. The officer hesitated. Sir, that's a formal declaration. I'm aware. The AI interfaced with the galaxy-wide diplomatic relay. For the first time in history, a human override was executed without consent. Every species, from the floating songborn of Issel to the molten-bodied Thrax, received the message simultaneously. It was Cade's voice. Unfiltered. Unapologetic. You were warned. We asked for respect. You offered lectures. We asked for accountability. You delivered silence. So here's our final word. Not a request. Not a threat. A statement of fact. He paused only long enough to let the Council feel it coming. From this moment forward, the Terran Assembly does not recognize your authority, structure, or legality. You are no longer rulers. You are data. And we're wiping the file. The feed ended. It was not war. It was an obituary. In the halls of the Council, chaos bloomed. Morvac collapsed into his seat, hands trembling. The Tezhari ambassador fled mid-session. Rozek ordered the emergency mobilization of every remaining fleet. But there was nowhere left to point them. There were no targets. No enemy formations. No planets under siege. Just the creeping certainty that whatever Earth had become, it no longer played by the rules. They didn't want land. They didn't want reparations. They wanted the system gone. And they were already halfway there. On Europa, Cade shut the last control panel and turned to the officer. Schedule the next wave. 3 days. No announcements. Just darkness. The officer nodded and left. Cade remained, watching the stars go dim one by one. No celebration. No pride. Just the quiet knowledge that everything was proceeding exactly as planned. Because when you've been the most underestimated species in the galaxy for 100 years, revenge doesn't come with noise. It comes with precision. The Council chamber reeked of desperation. Every delegate spoke at once, shouting over each other, demanding action, demanding answers, demanding someone else to blame. The air was thick with panic disguised as policy. But nothing was working. Systems were falling apart. The fabric of their perfect order was splitting at the seams. and Earth still hadn't said a word. 12 major hyperspace lanes had collapsed in 48 hours. Council communication relays kept looping outdated star maps. AI logistics hubs refused to respond to commands, unless the commands were spoken in archaic Terran dialects. Whole planets were running low on essentials, and their supply networks were beginning to riot. Fleet Admiral Rozek stared at the projections with quiet rage. He was used to war. Knew it. Taught it. But this wasn't war. This was dismantling. Piece by piece. Quietly. Fatally. He leaned toward the nearest advisor and growled. Send recon squads to every former Terran outpost. I want eyes, ears, bodies, anything. The aide hesitated. We've already lost 3 squads. No distress calls. No signals. They just stopped responding. Rozek didn't blink. Send more. Aboard the shattered cruiser Navara's Grace, drifting silently above the burned moon of Uran 4, a ghost signal had begun to pulse. It wasn't a message. It was a rhythm. 4 beats, pause, 3 beats, pause, 5. No known pattern. No translation. Except one. In an old, classified Terran manual on irregular warfare tactics, buried beneath 10 layers of diplomatic encryption, the pattern was recorded. Begin terminal phase. Commander Elias Cade watched from his chair in the command bay of the EHA's Axiom. The warship wasn't registered in any council system. It hadn't been for decades. It existed in the blind spot Earth had cultivated, between laws, behind treaties, under the radar of arrogant peace. He leaned forward, eyes locked on the tactical map. Begin terminal phase, he repeated. Human strike units moved like shadows across council space. No flags. No insignias. Just silence and impact. They didn't aim for targets of pride or power. They hit stability itself. Weather satellites. Terraforming regulators. Long-range comm buoys. Infrastructure designed to be boring, invisible, and irreplaceable. On Draven Prime, a council jewel world, 10,000 citizens woke up to find their currency had 0 value. Bank networks crashed. Trade systems bricked. They begged the council for assistance. The council sent nothing. They couldn't. Earth had stolen the math. Not the numbers, the method. The predictive economic systems every major world used had been built with Terran code, licensed under diplomatic cooperation decades ago. No one questioned it. Until now. Counselor Vex stared at the projection in disbelief. Are we saying they turned off our money? A younger analyst nodded. Not just yours. Everyone's. Commerce isn't just crashing, it's eating itself. Entire systems are regressing to barter overnight. Vex snapped. Fix it. We can't, the analyst whispered. We don't know how it works without their heuristic backbone. Across 50 systems, supply chains failed. Artificial weather collapsed. Transit relays blinked offline. Minor riots turned into collapses. And the ghost signal continued. Back on the Axiom, Cade spoke into a secure channel. Activate contingency Heron. The AI replied. Heron requires biometric unlock. Cade pressed his thumb against the authorization pad. It sliced a layer of skin thinner than a human hair. The system bled green. Authorization confirmed. One by one, former Terran colonies reawakened. Stations believed to be abandoned lit up, rearmed, and came online. Civilian freighters, thought harmless, revealed concealed railgun platforms and stealth arrays. They'd been seated across council space years ago, dormant, waiting. Earth hadn't retreated. They'd embedded. The Zarniks tried to retaliate. They launched a precision strike on a Terran-aligned rebel moon. Their warships arrived. Their payloads deployed. Nothing hit. Instead, a single message appeared on every Zarnik ship's internal display. You struck first. We strike last. Moments later, each warship turned on itself. Engines exploded. Power cores reversed. Hulls fractured. And the only thing survivors could agree on was that every screen, right before the end, had shown the same thing. A human face. calm, smiling. Council leadership began to splinter. The Dreyval accused the Tezhari of siding secretly with Earth. The Tezhari blamed the Velshayar for provoking them in the first place. The Velshayar quietly vanished from the Council database altogether. Rozek demanded the use of ancient weaponry, quantum sun piercers, graviton rupturers, extinction-class devices outlawed centuries ago. But no target remained. Every human city was shielded under fold space cloaks. Their fleets were scattered, mobile, and never seen twice. Even when they were visible, they didn't engage. They didn't warn. They didn't gloat. They just acted. Kate stared at the most recent intelligence report. Civil unrest on 35 Council planets. Refugee flows beginning to collapse. Rogue AI uprisings triggered by Earth's virus protocols. All proceeding ahead of schedule. He turned to the AI. How long until they formally break? 72 hours. Unless prompted sooner. He gave a small nod. Then let's nudge them. Across Council space, a single coordinated strike unfolded. Not an explosion. Not an assassination. Just erasure. Every known record of Council protocol law, wiped. Every digital vote in the last century, scrambled. Archives, elections, planetary rulings, reduced to static. It wasn't domination. It was humiliation. That evening, the Council voted to open emergency peace talks. Earth didn't respond. Because Earth wasn't offering terms. They were offering a lesson. The Council sent a final envoy ship to Earth, a gilded cruiser broadcasting peace signals and carrying ambassadors from 5 species, each handpicked for diplomacy. They didn't even make it past Jupiter. They vanished from all channels, their signal replaced with a single line pulsing on every diplomatic frequency. You had your chance. Council panic turned to fury. In less than 6 hours, Fleet Admiral Rozek mobilized the last of their operational fleets, 125 vessels, drawn from every loyal system. They jumped toward Sol under full cloak, guided by emergency warp paths untraceable to outside observers. Their mission: force a return to order, by show of force or total annihilation. They never reached Earth. Not a single one. The Council received footage 3 hours after their disappearance, hijacked onto every broadcast channel galaxy-wide. The camera feed was static, low quality, clearly recorded from a drifting probe. In it, the fleet emerged from warp into the outer Sol boundary. Everything looked quiet. Then the stars shifted. No weapons flashed. No hostile ships revealed themselves. The fleet simply buckled. One by one, the vessels tore apart from the inside, like pressure vessels overfilled and burst in silence. There was no explosion, no scream. Just clean, clinical failure. Dozens of ships folding inward like they were never built to exist. At the end of the footage, a single human voice played, calm, steady. This was not an ambush. This was a consequence. Elias Cade watched the reaction play out from the command deck of the EHA's Axiom. Across the galaxy, the Council fractured. 5 systems declared independence in a single cycle. Major trade hubs collapsed. And for the first time in its 1,000-year reign, the Council shut down public access to its emergency database. It no longer mattered. Fear had replaced data. An aide spoke behind him. Do we proceed with Operation RIT? Cade didn't answer right away. He watched as the final reports rolled in, surrender signals from Council-aligned colonies, fractured command lines, rogue systems activating old Terran encryption. RIT was always inevitable, he said. Execute. Terran forces didn't invade. They materialized. Across Council space, old cargo haulers were revealed as re-engineered warships. Civilian trading posts became military coordination hubs. Entire moons flickered and uncloaked, revealing planetary cannons buried for decades. No announcements. No negotiation. Just arrival. One such platform appeared above the Council's oldest shipyard on Tlarn Prime. No warnings were issued. The ground below began to vibrate, then rise. Deep beneath the crust, a dormant kinetic rod launcher came online and released a single tungsten spear the size of a skyscraper. It landed silently. There was no explosion. Just an instant flattening of 50 square kilometers of military infrastructure. When the dust settled, a black banner fluttered above the wreckage. No words. Just Earth's old flag. In the Council emergency chamber, Chancellor Morvac's composure broke. "This isn't strategy," he said, barely louder than a whisper. "This is dissection." Rozek stared at the hollow projection of their fallen fleet. "They're doing what we trained them not to." Vex was pacing. "We should have never allowed them into the Council. We should have kept them at the edge where they belong." "They were quiet," Morvac muttered. "We thought it meant they were small." "No," Rozek said. "They were watching." On the Axiom, Cade received an encrypted message. It came not from a Council channel, but from one of the breakaway planets, Theranes, once a proud supporter of interstellar law. The message contained one sentence. "We are ready to join the Accord," Cade replied without hesitation. "Then burn your flag." Within hours, 10 more systems followed, each deactivating their Council IDs, rerouting their transponders, broadcasting the phrase, "We are no longer bound." Cade stepped into the war room and faced the command staff. No emotion. Just quiet resolve. "Upload protocol reckon." The AI responded. "Protocol active. Transmission in 30 seconds." In a secure data stream coded in Old Terran syntax, a single statement was sent to every remaining system aligned with the Council. "This is not occupation. This is succession." The message continued. "You were never conquered. You were made irrelevant. We severed ties not in rebellion, but in disgust. What you called order was wrought beneath ceremony. We are not your enemies. You made yourselves ours." There was no demand for surrender. No call for negotiation. Just a line of finality. "If you wish to survive, rebuild something better. Without us. Or beneath us. Your choice ends here." Rozek sat alone as the message played on loop. No one came to his aid. His fleet was gone. His world had gone silent. His rank meant nothing now. On Earth, Cade stepped outside for the first time in months. The sky was clear. The air smelled of metal and salt. No alarms. No tension. Just the silence of a world that had spent decades preparing for this day, and now had nothing left to prove. Behind him, the AI offered its final report. "Council status, defunct. Interstellar power networks, restructured. Accords signed 36 systems. Resistance, statistically irrelevant." Cade said nothing. The galaxy wouldn't heal quickly. But it would remember. Not because Earth conquered. But because they walked away, and let everything collapse without them. The final meeting of the Galactic Council took place in an almost empty chamber. Only 8 delegates remained of the original 200. The rest had either fled, defected, or quietly disappeared. No translators buzzed. No ceremonial lights flickered. Just silence, punctuated by the slow hum of a dying empire trying to save its breath. Chancellor Morvac sat with his head bowed. He had once presided over entire star clusters with a word. Now he couldn't even get a status report from the next sector. Power wasn't taken from him. It had simply stopped answering. Councillor Vex, gaunt and tired, broke the silence. "What do we do now?" Rozek didn't answer. His uniform still carried the patches of an admiral, but he looked more like a relic than a warrior. His hand trembled as he pulled up the latest system-wide feed. There were no orders to give. The screen was flooded with a single signal, repeated by hundreds of worlds, each one formerly loyal. "We stand with the Accord." Not a human symbol. Not a Terran flag. Just a phrase. Some said it with hope. Others said it with fear. But all of them said it. Rozek turned it off. "We lost." Vex laughed, sharp and bitter. "We didn't lose a war. We never got one." "No," Rozek said more quietly. "We lost relevance." On Earth, Elias Cade stood before a sea of encoded transmissions. Each line represented a system once governed by the Council, now requesting admittance into the new framework. Some were military, others civilian. Some wanted protection. Others wanted guidance. None wanted control. The AI filtered the requests. 49 applications verified. 17 strategic assets already aligned with our shadow protocols. 6 requesting mentorship programs. Cade nodded. Accept them. And draft the charter. A second voice entered the chamber, human, real. It belonged to Commander Lyra Mayan, former chief of Earth's diplomatic Ghost Division. You really think they'll hold it together without us there to push them? Cade didn't answer immediately. He studied the screen, watching systems once locked in bureaucratic stalemates now move freely. Trade re-established. Disputes settled locally. Small wars avoided not through law, but mutual necessity. They'll adapt. Just like we did. Mayan crossed her arms. You think the Council will try to come back? No. He looked her in the eye. They'll wait for someone else to try to replace them. That's how this cycle always restarts. She nodded. And we'll be the reason it doesn't. He turned to the AI. Broadcast the final directive. The signal was short. It didn't explain, apologize, or demand. It simply confirmed. The Terran Accord is active. Governance is local. Oversight is decentralized. Power is earned through accountability. You are free. Do better than we did. It spread across every known channel, not as a threat, not as a doctrine, but as a challenge. Cade watched the stars blink in and out of focus. The Accord was not a government. It was a framework. It didn't lead with fleets, it offered maps. Guidelines forged in silence, shaped by strategy, and enforced by credibility. Rozek read the broadcast alone. For a long time, he stared at the phrase. Do better than we did. It wasn't condescending. It wasn't smug. It was honest. That's what made it unbearable. He could have ordered a final strike. He still had a few rogue weapons caches under his name, buried deep in systems Earth hadn't yet dismantled. But what would be the point? They wouldn't strike back. They'd let him waste the last shot. And then they'd simply remind the galaxy why Earth had walked away in the first place. On the edge of Council space, the last Velshayar deep core relay lit up for the first time in weeks. The broadcast that came through was unexpected. Not a declaration, not another warning. It was a story. A human child, maybe 10 years old, telling the tale of Earth's early wars. Not the battles. The rebuilding. The treaties that failed. The ones that held. How they learned to stop fighting each other long enough to survive what came next. No empire. No grand finale. Just a reminder. Earth hadn't won through fear. Fear was the byproduct. What they'd mastered was patience. Precision. Presence. A kind of power that couldn't be charted by the size of a fleet, but by the weight of a decision. Lyra Mayan walked beside Cade as the final Council archive was shut down. Think they'll remember? Only if they want to avoid repeating this. And if they don't? Cade smiled faintly. Then we won't have to say anything. The silence will do it for us. Earth didn't crown itself ruler. It didn't plant flags or build thrones. It just left the door open and walked out. Let others build. Let others speak. Let the absence say more than presence ever could. And the galaxy listened. Because when the loudest voice finally goes quiet, everyone hears the echo.